Welcome to the Daily Exchange, guys. We're back here. We're talking with Tim Draper, everything Bitcoin, the halvening, bit of Silicon Valley. You know, you name it, we're talking about it. We'll see you guys in a sec. All right, guys, we're back here. I'm with an incredible guest today, Tim Draper. Tim, welcome to the Daily Exchange.
Terrific. Thanks for having me, Daily Exchange.
Awesome stuff.
Let's have an exchange.
Yeah, let's do that. Now, for anyone, just quick background, Tim, a lot of infamous investments, Skype, Tesla, Twitter, Robinhood, Coinbase, Baidu. You know, there is obviously on this show we want to dig into a very famous investment of 30,000 Bitcoin, and we're going to come to that soon. Right now, you know, you've also got a prediction of around $250,000 for Bitcoin in 2023. How are you feeling about that prediction right now?
Oh, it's right on track. I'm actually really excited because I kind of expected things to drop some. Well, the excitement waned, but then as engineers and entrepreneurs are building more and more of an infrastructure around Bitcoin, it looks like it's gonna happen. In fact, what I didn't realize was that so many of the cryptocurrencies would be sort of marginalized, where they would lose their backing or the entrepreneur who is driving them. And that consolidates more of that activity around Bitcoin. So I actually think 250 may be a little bit light. It may actually be more like 2023, like the beginning of 2023. But all systems seem to be go for a real Bitcoin. A lot of excitement around Bitcoin.
Awesome, Tim. Building on that, we've got a halvening coming up in May. What do you think, you know, how are you seeing this affecting price, and how are you seeing this affecting the market right now?
Well, I can just tell you what it's done to price each time in the past. It's created a quantum jump in the price, but there's a lag. So the halvening happens and nothing really happens to the price for a while. And then people realize that, oh, you know, the mining it's going to take to get to a Bitcoin is going to be harder, and so it's got to be worth more to keep the mining going. But then I don't know what it is that drives it well beyond that, because if you do the math on the halvening, you end up somewhere around my $250,000 prediction at about the same time. So it's really interesting how those two things have come together. My prediction was really based on creating enough of an infrastructure to bring Bitcoin to a 5% market share around the world as a currency. Well, the halvening, if you kind of run the numbers on the halvening, it comes up about the same time at about the same price. So I was sort of excited to see that, and it's just, God, Satoshi, way to go, man. This was, what you came up with is so extraordinary.
I agree. Amazing stuff. A really incredible experience. Now, you mentioned mining capitulation right now. It's a bit of a topic that's being talked about in cryptocurrency. And just to give everyone context, the idea being that there'll be a halvening, or half of the Bitcoin is going to be paid out, and therefore it's going to be much more expensive to run mining operations. So some miners are actually closing down potentially. There could be a consolidation of miners. Now, we've just got a tweet here that's come out and from William Hofford, and I just want to quote this to you. He says that Bitcoin miners would lose about $45,341 per block mined, with 2,159 transactions per block. Therefore, he's predicting that if today this was to happen, the Bitcoin mining fees, or sorry, Bitcoin transaction fees would need to go to around $21 per transaction to make that up. What are your thoughts on that kind of prediction?
Well, I think the reason that the halvening makes so much sense is that what Satoshi really came up with was something to counter the effects of Moore's law, where a mining rig, $1,000 worth of compute power doubles every 18 months. Now it's actually more like every 14 months. And so when you say that the mining will become consolidated, I'm not so sure that's true, because new miners can come in with new machines and they can compete with the big, Bitmains of the world. And that will continue to happen. And the halvening is just a way of counteracting Moore's law on mining equipment. So I think it actually, it all sort of shakes out. I do know that mining is going to be a cyclical business. It's going to come, it's going to go, it's going to come back, it's going to go, it's going to get bigger, it's going to get smaller. All of those things are going to happen over time. But overall, miners are going to make money, a lot of money.
What do you think? I guess you talked about that. You're not worried about the centralization of mining, and obviously with Moore's law, it's flattened out a lot over time now. It's become, it's not as quick, which is interesting in and of itself. Potentially there are other technology that could come in, but let's remove that for a second. A lot of people talk about this centralization. Do you think there will be centralization, big mining operations in mining in the future, or do you think that the hobbyist will still be able to join and keep this decentralized nature of Bitcoin?
Well, I think the hobbyist who buys their equipment at the right time can certainly benefit and become a successful miner. I think, sure, some of it will become centralized, but I think that there will always be competition for that mining, even as mining becomes much more professionalized, and certain groups will have a bigger and bigger share of it. I think that will be counteracted by new equipment, and that's already happening. The new Antminer is bringing in a ton of new miners. They're saying, "Hey, look what I can do." Before the halvening, I can make a whole bunch of money, and after the halvening, really just depends on what happens to the price.
Okay, now let's move on from that. I think it's exciting times. It's going to play out. Bitcoin hash rate's obviously moving around, slightly down right now as well.
Hey, one more thing about mining. It might be that a lot of the reason that the whole world doesn't mine is that it has been harder to do. You need to buy the equipment. Usually there's some code you have to write for it. It's complicated. Well, I think that might, some entrepreneur might simplify that and create an app that just says, here, start mining now, and I want you to mine this and this. Or even AI does all the mining for them, and they say, okay, I want this much Bitcoin, this much Tezos, this much Ethereum, and use the AI to figure out which one and when. I think mining actually could be, in fact, mining could also be where the profit is built in based on the current price of any coin. So people would know exactly what they were going to make in buying a miner. So I think there is businesses and technologies and engineers, they all evolve. And that evolution can only help us. And this new decentralized world is a part of our, this whole human evolution. So I think when people panic about one thing or another, what they're missing is that entrepreneurs will come in to solve those problems. And that is what makes our business so good, the venture business. And it makes a really great horse race for all those entrepreneurs out there.
Okay, let's move on talking about Silk Road and Ross Albright. Firstly, you put out a tweet.
Free Ross, baby. Get him out. We need entrepreneurs like that guy. You know, get him out of jail. My God, why do you put these really extraordinary people in jail? We need their minds and their energy and their force, their life force. You know, get him free. Who knows what else he could have come up with.
So you know, he was.
And I get that he's got to be an example, and he set, you know, and he stepped over the line and all that. But you know, he's been in jail for a while. Get him out. But why? God, I cry when my pet has to go into a cage. You know, it tears my heart out when all these prisoners are in cages. There's got to be a better way for crime and punishment than what we have. I think we are not being human. Humanity is not being human by putting all these people in jail.
Well, you know, I think there's a lot of people, you know, for example, as well, with new technologies, like, you know, with Napster, for example, was probably the beginning of some of the, you know, streaming technologies potentially, and
Sure.
all those kind of things. And
sure, we'd have no Skype if we hadn't had Kazaa. Yeah, I mean, think about all the great things that have come from these extraordinary entrepreneurs that have tried new things, and they were cutting new turf, and the society didn't know how to deal with them, and some of them get put into jail, and some become billionaires. You know, I think we want to make sure that those people are well taken care of somehow. You know, if you've got to put some sort of a restriction on them, that's fine. But I mean, boy, putting them in jail, I just don't think it's healthy, and I don't think it's good for society, particularly a society that is really thriving on the success of entrepreneurs. I mean, you look at the 10 biggest companies in the world every 10 years, 7 of them change over. And that's because of entrepreneurs. And that's because we are looking for these extraordinary people who try to improve our world. And Ross was one of those. So let's, you know, I'm sure he's done enough time. Get him out.
I appreciate your sentiment personally as an entrepreneur as well. And going, you know, the Wright brothers didn't have a pilot license. So, you know, and it feels
That's
like
a great example.
You know, and it feels
that is
like
a great example.
It wasn't Galileo or
something. Yeah, and I don't think the Google guys had a library card either.
I don't think they had a library, and I'm not sure how many. Yeah. That's true. Which you know, and I think it comes back to, you know, when you're. I have to ask Tim. You know, when you're looking at these creative entrepreneurs, you know, and they're really, you know, pushing the boundaries on technologies. How do you make that decision? I could imagine you get pitched all the time between something which is potentially constructive and disruptive, versus being potentially destructive but disruptive as well. Like, how do you draw the line in your investments? And decisions?
I always ask that question of myself. First, I say, if this thing succeeds, you know, a lot of venture capitalists talk about all the risks that can happen to a business. I don't really do that. I say, if it succeeds, how big is it? How much do people care about this? Is it going to be something that really does a lot of good for society and builds a great business around it? Or is it something that's sort of meh, nobody really cares? And so even if it's successful, nobody's really going to care. It's just going to be another whatever, social network or whatever. I think I'm looking for those things that are really out there, a little bit maybe odd, things that I've never thought of, people who have come to me have taught me some interesting things. Those are the people that I'm looking for. And those are the extraordinary entrepreneurs I'm looking for. If you go through all of our data from all the 30 years plus that I've been in the venture business, you go through all that data, you find out that the category that made the most money was a category we call other.
That's good. I really like that. The other category. And I think this leads me on to, you made a very bold purchase of 30,000 Bitcoin from the US Marshal in 2014. And I have to ask, in that moment, what were the pros and cons that you were thinking through? What was the investment principles that you made or thought through to make a decision like that?
Partly I was trying to make up for all the 40,000 Bitcoin that I lost to the Mt. Gox guys. They seem to have disappeared my money. But what happened was when Mt. Gox fell and took the money or did whatever they did, I thought that was the end of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin was going to be, just another also ran. But Bitcoin only dropped about 10 or 15% on the news. And I thought, whoa, hey, people really need this. This is going to be a very important part of our economy, because I didn't really understand why. I was thinking, why isn't this zero? Why didn't Bitcoin go to zero? Well, it's because there are so many great uses of Bitcoin that you can't use dollars for. Micropayments, remittances, paying employees overseas, buying things from somebody who doesn't have a bank account, banking the unbanked. There's so many interesting applications that came to light when I started really looking into it. And I looked into it because of that weird situation where I thought, wait, if the biggest exchange in Bitcoin goes out of business, how could this continue to be successful? Well, it's because people really needed it. And I got so excited about it, I started buying. I bought all the way up. And when that Marshal's office, the U.S. Marshal's office, came with the auction, I looked and I thought, all my friends here are looking at this as a way to get a discount on a lot of Bitcoin. And I thought, well, if it goes well, it's going to be worth so much more than this. And if it goes badly, it's going to go badly. So I decided that I would pay a little over market. And then I thought, well, I'll maybe get one or two of the lots. There were 9 lots. I got all 9 lots. So I got more than I wanted. So it was partly bold, but partly just like, hey, you bid above market, you get the whole thing. And it's like winning the art auction. You realize you paid more than anybody else would. But it turns out that was prescient. Boy, that was the best, probably the best currency deal anybody's ever done.
It's true. And I know you haven't, you don't want to disclose the amount you paid for that, and I totally respect that.
Oh no, I paid 19 million for it.
19 million, right? Makes sense. And then, and I just wonder, I do ask, I want to understand something. Are you still buying Bitcoin? Like, are you still buying more?
Yeah, in some ways. I'm buying it because I still take Bitcoin for tuition at Draper University. I still take Bitcoin for rent at Hero City. I have taken crypto in my funds. It's a little complicated, but we figured out how I could take crypto in my funds. Because there's some tax things and some other problems that can come up. So I guess, I keep adding to my position that way.
Interesting.
I did buy more when Bitcoin went down from the auction price. and then I put that to work in a bunch of the Boost startups that were doing Bitcoin, and some of those have worked out and some haven't. Bitcoin, I invested in those companies when Bitcoin was way down, like 180 or something. And so if they held some of it, they did really well.
That's the way it goes. In terms of just quickly, you know, there are a lot of forks right now, and I know you're obviously, you know, are you so would you consider yourself to be a Bitcoin maximalist, or, you know, what do you think about the forks?
Because I don't really, I do know that Bitcoin, people will if you're a retailer, the first crypto you'll ever take will be Bitcoin. So Bitcoin will have the largest market share out there just by the nature of its brand. But Bitcoin Cash, you know, they've got some bright people working on that. I think that's got a lot of potential. Some of these other forks, maybe not so much, but maybe something will happen with a fork. It's weird. The tax people are saying that a fork represents income, and or they're trying to. And I think we need to sort of fight that, because if you have a gold mine and you find silver, you are not immediately taxed on the silver, not until you sell the silver. So I don't think it should be that way. But the tax people are trying to do that. They're trying to say, on the fork, you have to pay. I think they should treat it just the same way as anything else. It has a zero cost basis. You pay when you sell. And I do like the idea of forks. I like the idea of other ICOs. I like the idea of people using different currencies for different things, because I love innovation. I love seeing the 1,000 flowers bloom. So I guess I wouldn't fall into a category of being like religious of one type or another. I think I'm a little bit more, my religion is in building the progress and getting us to this new decentralized world, which I think is coming, and I think is going to be transformative from an anthropological point of view, a sociological point of view. This is fundamental. It started just with where all of us were tribal, and we were all tied to different geographic territories. And now we realize there's a currency that we can use across all the borders, globally, anywhere. And it's not tied to what one person or set of people or one government or set of political forces or military forces tell us it's supposed to be worth. Instead, it's worth what the market will bear. That is going to be incredibly valuable, and it's the first step toward a truly decentralized world. And that decentralized world becomes more and more borderless over time. And in that case, if it's in a totally borderless world, governments will have to compete for us just the way corporates compete for us. So you, as a consumer, you have a choice between Uber and Lyft. You have a choice between the iPhone and the Samsung Galaxy. You have choices. In government, you don't have choices. You're stuck. It's a monopoly situation. But state governments are competitive. City governments are competitive. But federal governments, you're kind of there or not. I think federal governments, a lot of what they do is provide insurance. But what is insurance to a crypto person, to a Bitcoin lover? It's a smart contract, an actuary, and a system for keeping track of things. So a blockchain. So I could, with Bitcoin on the blockchain, with smart contracts and an actuary, create, and maybe with some AI, create the perfect insurance company and very cheaply. And it would provide very fair, open, and transparent services to my clientele. Well, what is government but a bunch of insurance packages? There's healthcare insurance, and there's workman's comp insurance, and there's your pension and your social security insurance. All those insurance packages could all be done by AI with smart contracts on Bitcoin. That's going to be a big change for a lot of governments, because a lot of what they provide are these insurance packages. Well, a lot of governments now are setting up, Estonia first, and then Malaysia, and now Kazakhstan are all setting up virtual governments where you can be a virtual resident or virtual citizen of that country. Well, they're going to all compete for they're going to be able to provide services that we may or may not be getting from our existing government, or they can provide it cheaper or better. So this is transformative for humanity, and it's coming. And I feel like I'm out there letting people know that, hey, this is coming. Get ready and get used to it. If you're a citizen of the world, that's great, because you're going to have governments competing for you. If you're a government, get ready for it, because you're going to have to compete for your citizens. You're going to have to do a better job for the taxes you charge. So big change coming.
It's amazing. The world is changing. I want to talk about investments and personal finance. Obviously at Finder, we talk a lot about investments here, and personal finance, obviously saving money and things like that. But, something which is, I think a lot of people are thinking about right now is the industries that are changing. And I'm interested in understanding what industries are exciting you. What are you sort of focused on right now?
I like anything that could go decentralized and be completely changed. So finance, banking, insurance, healthcare. Healthcare has some really interesting AI possibilities where you use AI to do diagnostics. Government, serving governments, and also governments providing better service. Both are going to be pretty interesting places to be. And then it's interesting, I think, simplifying the use of Bitcoin, because it isn't accepted at all retailers yet, and it will be. And it's interesting, the women actually buy most, I think 80% of retail shopping is done by women. And the women are only one woman to every 14 men that have a Bitcoin wallet. And so as the women jump in and start using Bitcoin for their shopping, that will open up the marketplace. And that's where we're going to be looking at, why are we holding on to fiat currency? I mean, I look at, when I open my wallet and pull out $1 or something, I look at it and I go, God, why do I still do this? It makes no sense. This should all be on my smartphone. Yeah. Why do I even have credit cards in here? They're taking 2.5% to 4% every time I buy something. Not the credit card company, but the banks. Banks get 2.5% to 4% every time you buy something if you use your credit card. Well, with Bitcoin, you just save 2.5% to 4%. And I think the retail shoppers, the retailers, and the women are going to come with a big wave, and that'll be pretty exciting.
Let's talk about, I guess, for you personally, looking back in time, as a very, infamous investor. Tell us about the story about some of your...
I like that. People have called me different things, but infamous investor. I think that's good.
Yeah, I think you are quite prodigious as well, like in terms of I guess I call it punts. This is my Australianism coming through. Taking a bet. But tell us about some of your best performing investments that surprised you. You were probably thinking about rationally.
Well, all the best ones were a surprise. Hotmail, they came to us with an entirely different business, and then they changed their business to free web-based email. It was the first thing anybody had ever really given away for free anywhere. And they said, well, it's so cheap, why don't we give it away free and make it up on volume or something? We didn't even know. And we invested in Hotmail. And then I came up with that message at the bottom of the screen that says, it was supposed to say, P.S. I love you, get your free email at Hotmail. But it said, get your free email at Hotmail. And it spread around the world. It was a huge marketing push. We called it viral marketing. It was a big, huge success. But it was a total surprise. The whole thing was a total surprise. The guys who started Skype were considered outlaws. They could not come into the U.S. because they had started Kazaa and they were changing their business. Elon came to us. Well, actually, the guy before Elon, Martin Eberhard, came to us and said, that he was going to start a car company, Tesla. And we were looking and saying, well, God, there hasn't been a successful car company in the U.S. for 50 years. What are you thinking? But we did it anyway because we thought the I took an electric car for a spin and I didn't realize how fast they were nor how fast they could stop. And so I realized that you wouldn't have to be a tree hugger or a golfer to want to use an electric car. It could be a high performance vehicle. So I got excited about it. We did back Tesla. SpaceX, my God, it was taking on the rocketry industry. It was taking on NASA, big government organization. Turns out in retrospect, it looks obvious. It's like, yeah, NASA spent 200 times what they needed to spend to launch a rocket because of all the government paperwork they have to do.
What about Coinbase and Robinhood?
Twitch was a guy who was going around with a camera, videotaping his whole life. And that was the beginning of, then they evolved to, that they found that 40% of the people were watching other people using Justin TV, which is what it was called, to watch other people play video games. And that was the launching of Twitch. Coinbase, that was a retail, where it was a retailer of some new currency nobody had ever heard of, trying to get to the retail investor. And that was a long, long shot. But my son invested in Coinbase before I did. Robinhood was like, they were going to do discount or free brokerage. So another free thing. So I guess give something away for free. That helps.
Well, Skype's
but
free.
Be in the other category.
Be in the other category.
Be in the other category.
I love that.
They're all in the other category.
And I guess, for people trying to make investments right now, I think talking about the market itself, interest rates are at an extremely low point. There's a lot of volatility with political changes and things like that. The markets are quite volatile and responding to that. But there are investors right now with, I'd say, potentially a lot of cash in and of themselves. Do you have any sort of, I guess, I don't want to make it financial advice. We don't give financial advice on this, but just themes.
Yeah, no, I can't do that. The one time I gave financial advice, I gave it to my father-in-law, and the stock went immediately from 12 to 2. And I went, oh, I mean, making it up to him was a long, long process. He was very nice about it, but boy, it was a long process.
I think it was. I think, but people are, where do you think the markets are going for investment right now? People are that, they're putting more into stocks and real estate and things like that to avoid potentially even negative interest rates.
Yeah, negative interest rates don't make any sense. I mean, why wouldn't you just put your money in your mattress? I actually think interestingly, Bitcoin still has a very positive interest rate. And I'm kind of moving toward that. I mean, I can tell you what I'm moving toward. I'm moving toward a decentralized world that uses cryptocurrencies, that uses Bitcoin, smart contracts. The auditing and accounting and all that stuff only needs to be done on the blockchain. I think we've got a world that is, we're going to go through all sorts of turmoil on the way. The press won't like it because they don't like change. The government won't like it. They don't like change. But eventually they will. Eventually the press will say, oh, we knew it all along. And the government will say, oh, we finally settled on how this will all work and we're good. I think that is coming. It's going to go through. We're going to see turmoil on the way. You're going to see high volatility in the prices of these various cryptocurrencies. But long term, you're going to see a few major winners. I mean, the currency business today is 86 trillion. If you add crypto in 10 years from now, I think it's going to be $120 trillion. $120 trillion. That is a huge market. I mean, how many zeros is that? It's a lot, like 16, 17 zeros. That means you can create like, that's a 170 $100 billion, 170 trillion. That's 1,700 $100 billion businesses. That is a huge opportunity. We are going after something that is absolutely enormous, and it's going to change things. People are going to be for it, against it, whatever. All sorts of things are going to happen, but technology ultimately wins all the wars. This technology is going to be a major part of what's going to happen and how we're all going to be decentralized. And I think it's going to be a much more peaceful and loving world when this all settles out. But for now, you know, all the governments are sort of creating stresses where there really aren't stresses in order to justify their own existence. The best governments are saying, I'm embracing this new technology. I'm going to make it a part of our culture. It's going to help us grow our long-term economy. Things are going to go very well here. Some governments are U.S. is trying to walk a very fine line there. Some governments are trying to keep it the way it was. Some governments are trying to create stable coins so that they kind of feel like they're still doing the crypto thing, but they're missing like the biggest feature of crypto, which is that it is decentralized and open and borderless. But it's progress and it's moving forward. Things are going to be good. They're going to be really tough for another 3 or 4 years, and then it's going to be really great. Awesome. I think all of us, we're going to be able to do business in a much easier way. We don't have to pay Western Union 16% to get money across a border. We don't have to pay the banks 2.5% to 4% every time we swipe a credit card. We don't have to pay as much for the bookkeeping part of accounting because it will be done, and the accountants can figure out other things to offer us. Smart contracts are going to be out there, so a lot of legal issues will be moot. It's going to be a really interesting time.
Now, Tim, you have been a very, I guess, interested student of artificial intelligence since around 2000, and I know this is something that you're very passionate about personally.
Well, the joke is they were calling it artificial intelligence back when I was, 1980s, when I was a student in electrical engineering, because all it was, hey, we're using probability and statistics and experts to try to put something together. Well, now artificial intelligence can make better decisions than humans in a lot of cases.
So Tim, what do you think the winners and losers are? Like with the current state of AI, where do you think sort of the winners and losers are right now with AI?
I think we consumers are the winners because generally healthcare has been driven by the drug companies, and they are not making us live longer lives. They did for a while, penicillin was a big breakthrough, aspirin, big breakthrough. But now we've got a bunch of these addictive drugs, all sorts of drugs that are really brain drugs. They're not really helping us, and they're creating more emotional problems than before they were there. And but I think healthcare can be better handled by AI. I think AI is going to do a really honest and better job of diagnosing a problem. And so healthcare, we are all winners because healthcare is going to do a much better job of diagnosing people. We have a company called Cloudmetics that diagnoses people based on data that just their medical history. Well, let's add their genetic history and their blood test results and what they had for breakfast and their Fitbit results and what airplane seat they sat on and where they traveled, who they met, all those things. You add all that together, no doctor could ask that many questions. And turned out Cloudmetics took the doctor test, which the average doctor gets a 75 on, and Cloudmetics got an 85. And when combined with a doctor, got a 91. So for a while, we're going to actually have better doctors because the diagnostic tool will use AI. So, okay, AI, big in healthcare. I think driverless cars are going to make us much more efficient. Somebody asked me, well, how long before we have driverless cars out on the road? And I said, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years. And then they said, how long before humans are no longer allowed to drive on the road? Okay, that is the right question, because then you start thinking, well, wait, if you don't have humans on the road, these cars can run right behind each other. They can go hundreds of miles an hour, and they can be perfectly safe. It's the humans that are sort of making it so that we kind of have to slow it down. So that could actually create a whole new industry in automotive. So our company AI Motive is pushing in that direction, and the one we funded and we sold to GM, Cruise Automation, is also making great strides toward that. I think AI is going to take all of our jobs, and we're all going to have more fun and more things to do. The thing it'll start with are the mundane tasks. And so you think about what are the mundane tasks you do during the day? Well, all of those can probably be done better by AI. And so the more human tasks are the ones that will thrive in the new AI world. We're going to have, I mean, I think about that and I think, well, okay, how would venture capital be done through AI? Well, I ask a lot of the same questions of these entrepreneurs. We could just have a couple of cameras and, heat sensors and various other things, ask them these questions and see if their blood pressure rises or falls, who's telling the truth, who's getting along well. A lot of that can be done by AI. So I think my job is no longer the same job in, I don't know, maybe that's 10 years out. And I think your job, same thing. You could, who knows, you and I could be avatars right now. This could be a whole avatar thing. And they've just sort of taken personalities from us and made us avatars. I've answered a lot of the same questions from a lot of different journalists. This could easily be something I could AI.
Potentially. Yeah, I wonder how we can prove to everyone that this is not AI, but who knows?
No, I don't think you can prove it now.
No, I think it's too hard.
This is totally fake news now.
Yeah.
So So we're also looking at a company that's potentially going to use the marketplace to make news more honest. That's going to be kind of cool. We'll see how that goes.
Very interesting. Tim, you've covered a lot of different things right now, but I wanted to ask you, we're making an app here at Finder that will automatically help you compare all your financial products, but I wonder, what are the apps you're interested in right now? Because the phone is obviously a major device all around the world that people are carrying around with them. They're sleeping with them. The desktop is sort of taking a bit of a back seat. If you can't do it on your phone, you kind of get annoyed. What do you think about this device and where that's sort of going?
Yeah, my son, Billy, used to work with me, and then he started Path Ventures, and he's going after that. He'd be a better person to ask. He's going after that. He said, hey, look, I brought you Robinhood. All they did, they turned something that's complicated by phone or computer, and they made it into an app. Uber made that taxiing into an app. The Airbnb made going to a hotel room into an app. I think there are a lot more out there, and there are a lot more coming, and I'm going to keep my eyes open for them. But it's my son Billy's complete focus at Path Ventures, and he's good. I mean, I can't say he was trained by the best because I trained him. I can say that he stuck it out with me for 4 years before going off and saying, I'm out, Dad, I'm doing my own thing. And so that's very exciting.
I've got a last question for you, Tim. We ask everyone on the show, and it's coming up close to this time of year, but New Year's Eve 2019, what do you think the price of Bitcoin in US dollars will be? We've had all sorts of answers throughout the year, but
wait, New Year's Eve too?
2019.
New Year's Eve 2019.
Yes, so it's quite. Well,
it's pretty close. Pretty close to now.
You got a good chance. You're on the green. You get to putt.
I think I could win this.
Yeah.
I'm pretty optimistic about what happens around Christmas time, because I think a lot of people are going to give Bitcoin for Christmas. So I actually think that the price hits 8,500.
8,500.
It's now about 7,300, I think. I bet it hits 8,500. But my short-term guesses are just guesses.
It's
my
just
long-term predictions have been right on. I predicted 10,000 3 years from when it hit 10,000.
Yep.
And I was even being interviewed at the time I did it, and we hit it on the number. This 250,000, I am more confident of the 250,000 by 2022 or the first quarter of 2023 than I am of the prediction of 8,500 on December 31st.
Fair play all around. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. We've got your Twitter handle there for people to follow along to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Daily Exchange. And it's been very insightful, and I really, really appreciate everything you do for the cryptocurrency community and obviously for entrepreneurs as well, like myself.
Well, I'm just doing it for the world because I think all of you in the crypto community, the Bitcoin community, are doing extraordinary things for the world. The world is going to change in a big way, and it's because of you. So thank you.
Awesome stuff. All right, guys, that's Tim Draper. We'll see you guys. Don't forget, do subscribe, do follow us for more interviews like this. And wow, $250,000, 2023. We'll see you guys later. Yeah.